And I think people are starting to realize that they can control the way that they feel by just doing different things in their day-to-day life.
I talk openly about suicide. And suicide, in some ways, for me, is just us desperately looking for.
How would you handle somebody who is trying to get a grip on their life, trying to control and understand where the signals are coming from, how to intervene at the right times?
If everything in the universe is just pushing me, nudging me, like, you want to continue having an impact and the greatest of impacts on others, you have to continue.
You need to take every moment in life, at least from my perspective, from the view of like, I'm supposed to be here. This is part of my journey. This is an inflection point where I find out,
Hey, this is part of the journey of living. If you're going to get to a new place, understand that it's okay for it to be messy.
To go back and talk to the 18-year-old Ryan, I want to drill down into what is the one big piece of advice that you would give that 18-year-old you?
This is a big one.
Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Andres Sanchez, and today I have Ryan Landau, the co-owner and co-founder of New Earth Therapy. Ryan is going to come on here and talk about everything about getting better, having more mental clarity, looking into different types of therapy that can make you a sharper entrepreneur and make you a better operator. I'm really excited to have Ryan on here because, I get excited about having different areas of business, different types of entrepreneurs, and this is definitely one of those unique businesses. Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Andres. Happy to be here and excited about our talk today.
Yeah, and we got it's usually for me, these conversations are, I just met you 2 minutes ago and now the camera's rolling and we're having a conversation. You and I got the chance to talk a little bit previous to our episode. So you got me intrigued and got me excited. I'd love to give you the floor here right at the beginning to give us a quick intro on who you are.
So my name is Ryan Landau. I guess starting with I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. Went to school here. So all of my roots are here in Miami, Florida. I have a master's in mental health counseling, and I have been in the personal growth and development space for close to 22 years now. Um, 13 of those years have been in professional practice, and coming at mental health and emotional well-being from a variety of different perspectives, driven by neuroscience, wellness technology, relationship development, and a lot of different modalities that, sort of classic and conventional psychology, has discussed and talks about, but really coming from a more progressive place of, this sort of trauma informed, trauma transforming perspective, and how that also leads to us optimizing our mind and body for, maximum performance, and, uh, and really just living a much fuller life. My invitation for people is to dare to live, right? Dare to live more fully. We live in a world today where we are bombarded with information. We have more access to ways of thriving than ever before, and yet still we find it difficult to fully live, right? Fully allow life to teach us what it wants to teach us. And so that to me is a daring, a daring challenge, a daring exercise. And I love watching. I love taking that journey with clients that I work with and people that I work with today, watching them go through that daring journey and then finding out, like, wow, I did not think or imagine that life could be this sweet, this full, this adventurous, that I was this resilient, that I could figure this out. So yeah, that's kind of a high level nutshell, where I'm at, how I came to be where I'm at. I'll let you guide me from here.
Yeah, no, thank you. And before we unpack all the different ways that you do that for people, all of the different practices and all of that fun stuff, I want to understand where the passion came for you. Like, how did you find this path for you forward?
Well, I guess it's like many stories that we hear, right? I was at that fork in the road. I found myself at that fork in the road, having hit a mental, emotional bottom, a physical bottom, I'd say too, and a spiritual one as well, at the age of 24. Really caught in the web and in the grips of addictive patterns. So I was struggling with drug and alcohol addiction. And I found myself, like so many, at the bottom, wondering if this was all there was and what was next. Addiction, I've come to better understand addiction problems are often rooted in us wanting to find a different way of living, a different way of life. And so I now understand that better than ever. I'm now clearer than ever that that's my journey, and that's why I ended up there. And so it was 24 when I was forced into sobriety. I don't want to say I embraced it with open arms and a loving heart. I was more like forced into sobriety, having hit a bottom. And yeah, I mean that's kind of where the story begins, and that's in December of 2002.
I'd like to, and we don't have to go into too much detail, but we've got tons of people in that age range watching, listening right now. Uh, and I would be hard pressed to imagine that there's not a handful that feel that way or are in that position right now. What
Mhm.
advice could you give them, as obviously being somebody who lived through that, to maybe help one or two of these people get back on the right path?
There's another way. There's another way. We have to run you experiments, and you are worth it. You are totally worth it. You're totally worth every part of it. And the good news is that really doesn't it isn't as daunting as we sense that it is in the beginning. I often say if you had told me, Ryan, in over 20 years from now, you'll be helping people, you'll be telling your story about sobriety and healing and transformation and figuring out how to have a bigger impact on the world with your story, I would have found it really difficult to believe, if not altogether impossible. And so the formula, not to be too cliche, the formula of like 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time is a sound formula. It's a sound formula. It's a formula that is the most pragmatic, it's the most practical formula because I couldn't stay sober for 20 years. It was just impossible for me to conceive. I was 24 years old. I'm living in Miami, Florida. Uh, I was, in some ways, I felt like I was, that younger version of me felt like life was over. And that younger version of me had some relief in knowing that that life was coming to an end and struggled to let go of it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, there's a relief here. There might be another way. I don't have to continue doing what I'm doing, expecting that things are going to change. And what am I going to do now? Like, what in the world am I going to do now? Especially from a social perspective, right? Like, what do you do? I mean, like, one of the biggest party capitals of the world, right? And very much caught up in that scene in the 90s and early 2000s. And to say that I got sober in the same place that a lot of the wreckage was created is a really important part of my story. It's a really important part of my story. So it's not as daunting as it seems. You're worth every minute of a new life. You deserve it. You deserve to gift that to yourself. And there is another way. We often don't see another way. We see these stories of drug addiction and how it often leads. I mean, to me, drug addiction is a slow, whether we intend it to be or not, in many ways, uh, it's a slow suicide.
Hmm.
And I talk openly about suicide. And suicide, in some ways, for me, is just us desperately looking for another way of living. And the good news is that there is another way of living. Now, the work is the work, and the work for some of us is deeper and harder and takes longer for some of us to heal from, or begin to experience the results and the relief and the transformation of that work. And never in history, I don't think, have we been so clear that there is another way. There are new, sustainable, transformative journeys that we can take that will give us a life that feels significantly different than our prior life. And therefore, feeling as if, like, oh, okay, I, I get to do something different. I get to live differently. And this feels very different from that life. So there's a sense of relief there, right? There's a sense of relief in that I know that we can do differently. And I've watched people transform. I've gone on those journeys with them. I see it every day.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's not the easiest, but our goal here is always to try and impact the people listening. And I mean, for me, I'm 25, about to be 26, and I'm born and raised in Miami, like yourself. So that rings home hard for me because it's just natural. Like I have friends and people around me that are going through tough times, struggling, and I hope that they get the chance to hear this and it helps them. And I think that's a great segue into us going and talking about how you work with those people, how you help those people, and what your day to day looks like in this industry that, like you mentioned, you technically didn't pick, you were almost forced into it. But now, from a personal standpoint, you have a strong passion for it. And I think that's why you're going to be so successful and why I was so interested in having this conversation after us connecting and me learning about what you do. So I'd love to give you the floor to talk about what it's like for you to work with some of these people and what you do in your day to day.
So first of all, I want to say thank you, Andres, for saying that. I received those words of, um, you know, seeing me, hearing me, learning about me in just a short period of time, and appreciating that this is in fact a work of passion, a work of life, a calling, if you will. And which is why it makes it so easy, right? For us entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, for us founders, for us creators, the difficult part is if it's not aligned, and this feels very aligned. So it makes what I do very easy and very, very fun and exciting, and meaningful, very meaningful, right? From this natural, like authentic place. I don't have to like brew up some like motivational speech every morning for me to like go out and do what I do. It's there. It's awaiting for me. So I'm super fortunate in that sense. Super fortunate. Um, it really depends on where you're at in the journey of life. I have helped people who were actively drinking, drugging, medicating in a number of different ways when they met me, and that's a slower, longer term process to get them on a sustainable path. So when I say slower, longer term process, I'm talking about sustainable journeys, not quick fixes, right? I don't really do quick fixes. Uh, some of my paths that include neuroscience technology, um, advancements in what we understand about trauma, um, and my own personal stories of trial and tribulation and triumph. Um, those are some of the key components, and I can make and those when I put those together in the way that I do, when I format the program, as I often do in a way that's very strategic, very intentional, we can accelerate change. So it isn't we're not talking about us being in therapy talking about the same thing for the next 20 years, seeing no progress, and in some cases seeing a decline, as so many clients have shared with me when they get to me after having been through conventional processes and practices as it relates to their mental and emotional well-being. So we're not talking about that. We're not talking about some stifling, stunted, imprisoning, and often slowly slowly decompensating process. We're talking about a journey that's going to take you and put you on a path where you are in charge. You are in charge of how you feel. You are in charge of what you create. You are in charge of the relationships that you develop in your life, right? So, and so we would start off with like a basic consult, right? A basic consult, and that can, and when I say a consult, there are a couple different types, but I'm talking about the one where we really kind of go in deep and unpack things, and we really understand like where are you at, right? I've had people change, or at least feel as if something that I said in the first 15 minutes of our conversation feel very transformative. I had someone tell me the other day, Ryan, you said to me more in the first 5 minutes than the last 20 practitioners have said combined.
And
I've been paying attention. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just want to understand more. I'm curious, like, why is the gap, or why is there such a lack of innovation, such a lack of wanting to get better in the traditional practices? Because I feel like not only in your industry but in tons of other industry, in health, in wellness, there's this huge push for holistic health, these
Mhm.
new diets, not following the traditional systems. And just listening to you right now, you are very much implying that there are serious misses in this personal health, get back on track, traditional therapies. And we're now obviously, I cut you off here, but we're talking about why yours is different. I'm just curious, like, why is there such a lack of innovation in these industries now if the people are clearly asking for it?
Well, I want to first highlight, Andres, that there is innovation occurring and there is innovation coming to the marketplace. I am part of those innovations. Modalities like EMDR and neurofeedback, neurotransformative therapies, as I like to call them, they are coming and becoming more and more commonplace. Um, there are a lot of different reasons why the experience seems so limited for so many. Um, and I don't know that we have the time to get into that here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
uh, I'll chalk it up to this: the practitioner, the professional themselves has to be doing the work on themselves. They have to be current with what's innovating. They have to be current in experiencing themselves what is occurring, right? They have to continue growing. They have to continue learning. They have to continue. If I can only take you, we've heard this in a number of different ways. I can only take you as far as I've gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I make it a goal and a part of just my everyday life today, more than I ever have, frankly, to ensure that I'm growing, to ensure that I'm evolving. And the truth is that sometimes still today, close to 22 years later, feels a little daunting. There's some resistance that comes up for me. Okay. And I say, do I really still want, or dare I say, need to keep growing? And it's as if everything in the universe is just pushing me, nudging me like, yes, you do. You want to continue having an impact and the greatest of impacts on others, you have to continue growing. So I'm going to say that among many reasons, and there is a few that we could certainly discuss, I would say one of the most significant ones is who is the professional, who is the practitioner that's helping you, and what are they doing to evolve in their personal and professional lives, right? I would say maybe second to that is a lot of if we're going to take the academic industry, right, academia, and what they're putting out in terms of practitioners, I feel like there, it's always like a game of catch up,
Mhm.
them trying to catch up to what's occurring in the marketplace, what's actually occurring, like what is the industry actually experiencing, and mental statistics are pretty dire, right? So I have often said that this industry is in the process of reinventing itself in some ways,
Mhm.
and will continue to need to do that if it's going to continue to have a transformative impact on those it services.
Yeah, I do apologize for derailing you in that other thought. It's just for me, I feel like, and I totally agree with you. Like we are at this very transformative time, and I think it's for a lot of major industries. I think it's for health and wellness. I think it's for mental health. I think it's in education or academia. I just feel like the general public is calling for innovation, change, not the typical normal system they were used to. Now, like even thinking about just the industry overall, like I think of the way that they've passed out depression pills, and
Hmm.
people are younger and younger going on these antidepressants, and I think that that's actually changing now, and people are realizing that like that is just not at all the way that they need to live life. And I
Mm,
just posted a clip. I just had founder Dan Go on the show. His name is Fit Founder. He's got millions of followers, and he's all about like getting healthier. And we
mm,
talked about one of his most popular tweets, and this is somebody who was tweeting 200 times a day at one point. And his most popular tweet was, exercise is the most readily available antidepressant, yes, yet least used
mm,
antidepressant.
mm,
And
mm,
I think people are starting to realize that they can control the way that they feel by just doing different things in their day-to-day life. So I'm excited about, like, even now this second half of this conversation, learning about these different practices and what you were saying are innovations in this space. I'm excited to understand and learn more about what those are, because I think that we're at this huge inflection point in life, in the world, in a real push for new and better and healthier ways to do certain things or get over things that have been haunting and daunting people for the last 50 years.
I love it, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I share a lot of the same feelings and sentiment around what you just said, Andres. I tell people right away that when they inquire about my services, that if what they're looking for is a diagnosis and a pill, then I'm not the right practitioner for them. That's it, right? I don't, that's not what I offer. I think a big thing that we want to start speaking more about is that we're all born with this beautiful, I'm just going to call it an internal function called neuroplasticity. And so neuroplasticity, I like to say, is the art of how we change. We have this innate, inherent ability to heal, to grow, to develop, to transform. And 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 how awesome is it that we have that? Because different stages of our life are going to demand different skill sets, right? And so that's one thing I want to throw in there. The other thing I think it's important to talk about is how we have the ability. an inherent ability. I've been talking about this one a lot lately because when I reference modalities like EMDR and neurofeedback, and really even meditation, okay, I reference how the body has this innate, inherent ability to self heal. You and I break an arm today, we go get it checked out, may need a splint or a cast, 6 to 8 weeks, our bodies have healed. Well, psychological wounds are no different, are no different. We can self heal those. They're a little more intricate, they can be a little bit more complex, they may take a little bit longer to heal. We definitely need to dive into the nuances of where those psychological wounds are still impacting our lives. And we can self heal just like we can heal a broken bone. That's it. Like, if you understand that, you understand a lot, a lot, a lot more than the average person these days. We're just not taught that, right? And I think there was this, I'm just going to say, I feel like there was this heavy idea, this heavy push to be sold on the idea that outsourcing our health and well-being was the way to do it, was a luxury, right? And while modern medicine has some remarkable ways of taking care of us, those are largely when we've hit sort of an emergency threshold, right? It does not change, or it does not provide any real solution to resolve or heal the impact of our trauma. And it does not really, historically, it's changing, thankfully. Historically, it has done very little, if anything at all, to give us guidance around how to change our lifestyle. Both of those both of those principles are where we have to take charge of our life, where we have to learn, right, how to exercise, how to eat right, how to sleep right. It's a big one, right? And how to really work on parts of ourselves that just don't serve us any longer, right? Which is why we at times feel like, man, what is this? I'm doing this over here and I don't understand why it's working, right? Because it's out of alignment with who we want to become and who we've been, who we were. So there are a lot of different there are a lot of different points on this matter, but neuroplasticity and our ability to self-heal are two of the main educational points that we have to understand. And I would argue that it really requires some highlighting that neuroplasticity is natural. We are born with it. We don't have to do it. Sometimes they ask me, I get that call or that text or that inquiry. Ryan, do you do that neuroplasticity thing? I'm like, no. In one of my last newsletters, I explained you don't actually have to do it. That's the good news. You do need to learn how to intervene, right? Self-intervention. Like, pay attention. What's going on? Answer. Don't don't anesthetize the signals. Confront them. Embrace them. Get to know them. What's happening, right? It's like step number one. We don't have that, you don't have anything. And you don't have a chance at a real transformative journey. You'll have a band-aid journey. You'll have a journey that's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It feels like we're going nowhere. So, and then the self-healing is also inherent. It's also natural. It's a natural thing that our body and brains do. Like, they just naturally heal when we intervene in the right way, when we give it the opportunities to heal, right? So I would say that those two aspects of my process are critical, and I speak about them a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. I was going to tell you, let's get back to where we were. But to if there was any other questions around that.
Yeah, well, one, I just want to, for me and for probably the other people listening, how can you explain neuroplasticity to a fifth grader? So we understand. And then two, how would you handle somebody who's trying to get a grip on their life, trying to control and understand where the signals are coming from, how to intervene at the right times? So, one, let's understand neuroplasticity like we're all fifth graders here. And then two, like how because I want some there I know for a fact there's someone listening right now that's like, wait, I feel like this is they're talking to me. I feel like they're speaking to me directly, but I don't understand how to actually do what they're talking about.
Right, right. So neuroplasticity is our ability to create new connections, create new wiring, and therefore create new ways of living. Whether that be learn how to play an instrument, learn a sport, learn a new language, or learn how to heal, right? Take those hurt parts of us and change them into parts that benefit us. Change those memories and the emotions around them into now that's something that serves us, that makes us more powerful. Okay. On a scientific level, uh, neurons that fire together wire together. We got it. Reps, reps, and more reps is what I like to say. Quality reps,
Mm-hmm.
more specifically, right? Neuroplasticity is most robust, meaning that it's most active and most available in a way, in a sense, when we're young, which in a sense is why so much of the the conversation around it and the investment is is devoted to like let's learn these things while we're young and why years, these younger years, right, those 0 to 7 years, why they're so critical because we during those years, as the saying goes, we're like sponges. We're just absorbing everything. Learning is easy for many, if not most. We can pick up new ways. We can pick up new languages. We can pick up, new activities, instruments, sports, um, and really parts of our personality. Right, we're picking all that up based on the environment that we're in. Right, so we're going to form new connections based on the environment we're in. Okay. So neuroplasticity is just in many ways on the surface what it looks like once we've intervened and we have now done something different to change how we're wired, as the saying goes. It'll look like a new habit forming. Okay. And the more you do it, the more you do it, the more it becomes natural, like an
Okay.
automatic thing that you and I don't even have to think about. As you get older, you still have neuroplasticity at work. Okay. It's just you have so many reps from those younger years that those are the reps that become kind of the default operating system. Okay. And the good news is that we can change at any age. I've worked with 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds. I even worked with a 90-year-old once. And
Wow.
I've watched them reconcile their lives, parts of their lives in my process, working with me and free themselves of things of their past, unload things of their past, become happier, become more present, become more efficient in the way they were living, become more connected to their partners and to their families. So it can happen at any time. That's the good news. And again, all naturally. We don't have to do much of anything other than kind of be open. You were saying I think the other part of this question is how does someone get a grip on their lives today?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing to know is that no one, none of us get out of here, okay, without being confronted with some stuff. All right. So that's the first thing. I think education is it plays a big part in my process. Very education heavy in the beginning parts of my process, and certainly in the beginning at the end of almost every session. building insight, building connections, right? What does science say, right? What have you learned about yourself? And watching this come to fruition. So I would say be open, educate yourself, right? There's a lot of education available out there. Okay. There's a lot available. Um, I would say it's okay. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel I I don't think I've ever walked into any real transformative change, to be completely transparent on this, with like, ah, this is another opportunity for me to change. Let me bring down my toolkit. Let me bring down my toolbox. You know, let me download all the notes I've and let me go in there and skipping and then and like, yeah, I got this. I don't think that it's ever felt like I've been more trusting of the process as I've gotten older and wiser, and I've done it a couple times now in the last 20 plus years. So I know I can be like super emotional and super trusting in the very same moment, knowing, because I've done it before, because the evidence of my life suggests that I've done this and it's going to be okay. And in that same moment, also feeling anger, resistance, shame, guilt. Why me? Why again? Why is it? I can have all that stuff coming, and I know it's just part of the framework of us humans. We're resistant to change. I believe it was Carl Jung who said the first half of life is about individuation, and the second half of life is about transcendence. So when you understand it's just part of the formula, part of the process of living, and not because I believe that some of the issue around change is that it's wrapped up in a lot of shame and guilt and over identification and attachment, which a lot of the spiritual teachings, a lot of the mystical teachings from those who have gone before us, the sages, right, the gurus, uh, the honest ones, have taught us that, right? They've taught us like you're attached, right? Like you're just, and when you learn, oh wait, I'm attached because this is my survival framework. And when we over attach, it becomes we think this is who we are. Now, you're trying to get a grip on reality. This may be way too high level. I want to just acknowledge that for a moment. But what I want to say is just like it's gonna be okay. This is part of the journey of living. If you're going to get to a new place, understand that it's okay for it to be messy. I was in a workshop this past weekend, and one of the messages that I really took to heart was, if we had it all figured out, how boring would that be?
Yeah, it's true. It's very
And, and
powerful.
and me as a professional, as someone who's worked on himself, who wants to continue working on himself, who wants to continue guiding people, sometimes there's a part of me that wants to say, man, I have this figured out. And so the truth is I have a lot figured out, and there's a lot that I don't have figured out. In fact, there's a lot of I'm a sort of uh, long library of old wise sayings that I've picked up over the last 20 plus years. And one of them is that I reference a lot is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. I did not know that I'd be here with you today, Andres, sharing the story that I'm sharing with you today. It was beyond anything that my 24-year-old version, my 24-year-old self could have ever imagined. It was not in the scope. I just wanted to stop, hurting myself and hurting others and hurting the relationships I was in. That's all I really wanted. I wanted to stop the bleeding. And that may be the first necessary step for many of us. And then we shift into, oh, wait, this is about growth. This is about development. This is about co-creating new journeys for ourselves. And how wonderful to be gifted that. How wonderful to be gifted that. I think No, I don't think. I know that we live in a culture that says, in many ways, I mean, the collective unconscious in this space almost feels like there's this message that it's not okay, or that pain is not okay. To experience pain on any significant level for any significant length of time is not okay. And I'm not saying that I want people to suffer. That's not what I'm saying. On the contrary, on the contrary. But there is, the pain is the entryway. It's been said in, I mean, much more eloquent ways than I could have ever put it, and in a million different ways. It is the entryway. It is the entry point. It is the invitation. So to anesthetize it the way we do today, so quickly, so unconsciously, so rapidly, is really self defeating. It's really self sabotaging, right? And it's really limiting when it comes to understanding how powerful we can be.
I mean, there's no way that people aren't listening to this right now and feeling somewhat moved, inspired, something inside them telling them that they should go and do what they can. And I like that point there on pain. I just don't agree with people who are quick to remove themselves from suffering. I think life gives you challenges and it's all for a reason. There to make you a stronger person. Some people do whatever they can to shy away from them. Other people go head on, deal with them, become a better person, become a stronger person. And I think to me, that is the right way to go about it. It's ignorant to think that life is not going to be hard and that there aren't going to be tons of challenges along the way. There's so many unpredictable variables. It would just be, it would literally be impossible for that to happen. And you need to take every moment in life, at least from my perspective, from the view of like, I'm supposed to be here. This is part of my journey. This is an inflection point where I find out what type of person I really am. Am I going to face things head on, become stronger, and move forward? Or am I going to sit here, crumble, and start over again? And I think a lot of people sit in that seat. And I think listening to this, and I hope listening to this, is making them a lot stronger, a lot more confident, and a lot more interested in going and taking these things head on and becoming a better person every day, and not expecting that everything's going to be sunshine and roses, because that's just not the case.
Mm.
I want to, like, we're coming here towards the end of the conversation. I want to do two things. I want one, to see if obviously our audience is very entrepreneurial based.
Mhm.
You have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and talked with a lot of people. If we could give a 1 minute summary or a few bullet points of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs when it comes to everything that we're talking about, and then I'm going to get you with the final question that I tell or I ask all my guests, which I think for you is going to hit home really hard.
Nice. So number one, prioritize sleep.
That's big.
Sleep is ridiculously underrated, and it's the most natural process we have, and it's the most important one. You're not getting anywhere. Whatever hacking you think you're doing that doesn't involve optimizing your sleep is likely limiting you. If not now, you'll experience limitations in the future. So from a performance standpoint, sleep, prioritizing sleep, you are already worthy. You don't have to prove yourself worthy to anyone. A lot of entrepreneurs, I believe, unconsciously and unknowingly are trying to prove themselves worthy. And what they have to understand is that they're already worthy. They're already deserving of fun, happiness, excitement, success, love. Why are we doing any of this?
Hmm.
Seriously, like, why are we doing any of this? Like, sit back and ask yourself that from time to
Yeah.
time. What am I doing and why am I doing any of this? Right? And then I would include lots of personal growth and development work, lots of self care, exercise, nutrition, optimize your nutrition, right? Optimize your relationships. And when I say optimize your relationships, invest in the ones that seem the most fulfilling. And know that there are a lot of ways to get better performance out of yourself other than the sort of all too conventional and I think now dying ways of just grinding, grinding, grinding. You know, it makes no sense to crush it and crush yourself in the process. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't think it makes any sense to anyone with any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on those points. And I think our entrepreneurs, our founders are fighting some of the hardest battles. I mean, you've deliberately put yourself in a position where failure is the most abundant outcome. And you are going at it, in most cases solo on an island, trying to hack it and figure it out. So I encourage all founders and entrepreneurs listening to us right now, if you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like there are parts of your life that you don't feel fulfilled or you feel like there are gaps, go and talk to somebody, go and try and get some help. There's always the chance to become a better you, and most people don't take advantage of that because they think that they've got it all or they've got an ego, and that's perfectly normal. I think most people feel that way. But opening yourself up, and I mean, I feel like in this conversation, you can't still be with us right now and not being at least a little more willing than you were at the beginning of the conversation to open up, talk to people, get an understanding of how you're actually feeling, and do whatever you can to improve your life, your health. And that in turn will improve all of the relationships around you, which I think are some of the most important parts of life.
Yes, I would agree.
So I've got the last question here for you. And for someone like yourself who has clearly not had the easiest path in life, not gone through and not had a sunshine and roses walk
Mm.
through this amazing thing that we call life, I want to give you the opportunity now. If you had the chance to go back and talk to the 18-year-old Ryan,
Mhm.
what's the one big piece of advice you would give? Most people say, what would you say? I want to drill down into what is the one big piece of advice that you would give that 18-year-old you?
Oh, wow. This is a big one.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I've been thinking about this very topic, interesting enough, Andres, this week. I would say a few different things. One is the first one is you are not alone. We are one in this. I was at a workshop this past weekend, as I mentioned. Everybody in here, everybody in there, eh, all of us on some level, all struggling with the same thing, all working through the same thing, all overcoming and transforming the same thing. My wife, who also happens to be a therapist, was in the workshop with us, and her closing remarks were wonderful. She said, "We are all one." So the younger version of me, you are not alone. Keep learning. There's so much more than you could have ever imagined that awaits you. You are far, far, far more powerful than you've been told. I would say, as a learning lesson, if it doesn't feel aligned, get in touch with what you feel, practice that art. And if it doesn't feel aligned, deeply aligned with the innermost part of you that you can sense and get in touch with, move on, pivot, shift, change, because we can do that. Don't stay stuck because you feel you're not worthy enough, deserving enough, or powerful enough to figure this thing out. I would say learn to be authentic because there is a great deal of power in understanding what it means to be authentic and then practicing living from there. And the last thing I would say is Find your voice. Find your voice. It's a powerful one, and it's a necessary one.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on here and one being so open and sharing, because I know that's always not the easiest. So thank you for sharing, giving everybody here that's listening and watching with us right now a real understanding of how challenging life can be, and what are some ways that they could go about improving their life or getting better. Our one mission with this show is to impact as many founders and entrepreneurs in every way, not just from a business aspect, not just from a career growth aspect. Sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's physical. And I do really appreciate you coming on here and just giving us an understanding of how we can all get better every single day, and what it's like to live life not solo. Like, you are not alone. There's people around you. There's people that care. Um, I know we're wrapping up now. I want to make sure anybody that is still with us right now and has really enjoyed this conversation, which I'm sure many have, can go and connect with you. Where
Mhm.
on socials is it best to reach you? And we're going to have all that linked below in the video, whether you're watching on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. We're going to have that linked below, but I want them to hear where's the best place for them to go and connect with you.
I would say Instagram.
Okay.
They can book a call with me via Instagram. It's ryanlandau.live, RyanLandau.live. They can find me there, and they can DM me. They can schedule a call with me. Um, and my other platforms are on there too. They can be added
Awesome.
to my
Right.
newsletters.
Awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to now continue to watch your journey and
Mhm.
and see where you take this, and now I always tell my founders when I interview them, like, now you're on my special list of people I've connected with, and you've got somebody rooting for you whether you see me or not. And again, I can't thank you enough for pouring into our audience, our guests, our community, and sharing all of these invaluable stories.
Andres, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for your service and wanting to spread a word like this that I believe is arguably one of the most important words that we can spread, especially as it relates to business success, achievements, right? Creating, taking care of ourselves in the process is critical if we're going to enjoy the journey.
Well, that is the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today, and we will see you on the next episode.